Free agency is over. The draft is over. Meaning my thoughts on each NFL team has changed. So let's rank them 32-1. But before I power rank every team in the NFL, Gronk spike the like button, subscribe to the Bottom Line View for more NFL. Starting off in dead last, the Miami Dolphins. I'm sorry, Dolphins fans. I don't even hate your team, I swear. But I just think they suck. I did really like your draft. I do think you do have a decent head coach, and the Rosen era will be fun, but overall the Dolphins roster has to be the worst in the NFL right now. I guarantee I'm going to get comments from Giants fans who are still convinced that Eli Manning is good, and they're going to say that the Giants need to be higher. But anyway, what an epic draft the Giants had. It could rather be epically great, or it could be epically awful. We'll just have to see. The Marvin Lewis-less era is probably going to start off poorly for the Cincinnati Bengals, but if I'm a fan of the Bengals, I would give it some time. It could work out. I don't think Cincy is really that talentless as a team either. I almost feel bad ranking them at number 30, but I just think it's time to hit the reset button. The biggest wild card possibly of this season is the Arizona Cardinals. Who knows what Cliff Kingsbury is going to be, and who knows what Kyler Murray is going to be. It could rather really work, or it could really not work. One thing is for sure, their defense I think is super talented. Just check out their depth chart. I had them one spot higher, but after the JPP news, I had to move the Tampa Bay Buccaneers down. He was their number one pass rusher, and now he's probably out for the entire season. I have to say, if Bruce Arians is able to do something with the Tampa Bay Bucs in 2019, he's an even better coach than I even thought he was. It could simply be that getting Jameis Winston to play to his potential would mean that the Bucs are a good team, but this team is still so far away with so many holes for me to really buy in. When this team gets to training camp, it's going to be hard for them not to start Dwayne Haskins. Haskins is really superior to McCoy and Keenum in every measurable way. From his pure size, to his arm, to his confidence. This is the quarterback that I believe the Redskins have been waiting for. If the Broncos had one more wide receiver I could trust, and their quarterback wasn't named Joe Flacco, I'd sit here and I'd say, you know what? The Broncos, they might actually be back, but we know that's not the case. But the Drew Lock pick, that was impressive. Wow, the Oakland Raiders are just going to be so much fun, especially now because their draft was so divisive. Everybody is split on whether it was a great draft or it was horrible. And if Gruden can really turn around Derek Carr this season, I think this team has the talent around him offensively to be a playoff team. But if he's just average, the defense isn't there yet to put them in January. Is it fair for me to not know what to make of the Ravens? Is Lamar Jackson going to be more of a passer? Are they going to run the ball 40 times a game? And usually I would give the credit to the Ravens as a playoff team because their defense is usually at the top of the league, intimidating, tough, and physical. But I just don't know, especially with all these losses that they sustained this offseason, especially CJ Mosley. I just really can't call them a playoff team at the moment. I really like what the Jets did this offseason, adding around Sam Darnold. Quinnen Williams, I think, is going to be an all-pro player for them for years to come, but three things are bugging me when it comes to the Jets. Who are their pass rushers? The offensive line is still really ugly, and their corner depth is not ideal. The Jets will really hinge on the development of Darnold. If he's better than I expect in 2019, this team could be in the playoffs. Otherwise, they're probably a year or two away. As if this defense wasn't already loaded, now the Jacksonville Jaguars have Josh Allen. And in the second round, the Jaguars added a first-round talent at the tackle position to protect Nick Foles. If the Jags put it all together, they can go back to the playoffs. I think a lot of pressure is going to be on Doug Marrone to make this work inside the locker room. And one thing I'm really intrigued with is who steps up for Nick Foles to become his number one wide receiver. Mike Vrabel's vision is coming together for the Titans. Jeffrey Simmons is just the type of defensive lineman to set the tone for this team. The Titans are a good team just about everywhere on their roster, but they're just not a great team. And with Marcus Mariota at quarterback, it really truly is his make or break season. Rather, his team misses the playoffs because of his play, or they make it because of how he plays. I've been asked multiple times, Mitch, is Brandon Beane the new Howie Roseman? And my answer always is, he's off to a good start. This year's draft, just in the top 2 rounds alone, Beane was able to secure 2 guys to help the Buffalo Bills right away. 2 guys that will be starters in 2019 and studs for this football team for years to come. I can't wait to see how Sean McDermott uses Oliver in his defense. And offensively, I think the new targets around Josh Allen are really going to allow him to blossom. The Seahawks may have paid Russell Wilson, but it really doesn't look like he'll be able to do anything with the Seahawks this season. Frank Clark is gone via trade, and now Russell's favorite target, Doug Baldwin, is likely gone due to injury. Without both players, the Hawks are big time counting on young players to produce Pro Bowl results, which just often doesn't work out. Still, the Seahawks, I think, will be relevant because they do have Russell Wilson, they do have Pete Carroll at quarterback and head coach. The NFC North will be the toughest division in football this year. Honestly, any of the 4 teams could win the division. 2019, I am guaranteeing, will be the bounce back for Matthew Stafford, and thus will be a bounce back year for the Detroit Lions. For the first time in Stafford's career, he will be on an offense that actually has balance. He has a running back in Kerryon Johnson, and now he has a tight end in TJ Hawkinson who gives their offense the formation flexibility and scheme versatility that a Matt Patricia team is truly looking for. Dare I say that this is Cam Newton's best offensive line that he's ever had? They signed Matt Paredes, they drafted Greg Little, Darrell Williams is back, Moulton and Turner are mainstays, plus his top receiver DJ Moore could take that sophomore step. If Cam is healthy, this is a good team. They kind of remind me of last year's Colts in a way. We don't really know if Cam is there yet, but we know how dangerous they are and how dangerous they were at the beginning of 2018. I wouldn't be shocked if the Panthers did make another run to the playoffs, especially after addressing the pass rush in the draft with Brian Burns. They must protect Deshaun. That's the bottom line for the Houston Texans. First round pick Titus Howard should start right away, but I'm really disappointed with this Texans front office. Very little was done to improve their team all around. It just doesn't seem like the Texans are going to be a legitimate threat in the AFC unless Deshaun Watson is carrying this team to victories. They're a fun team with some really awesome players, but their weaknesses from 2018 are still their weaknesses now. The Minnesota Vikings entering 2018 had a ton of pressure on their shoulders with sky-high expectations. In 2019, they're flying way under the radar. I believe this season will be Dalvin Cook's coming out party. And with a couple additions to the offensive line, including first-round pick Garrett Bradbury, and hopefully some time to throw, Kirk Cousins may turn out to be the quarterback that Minnesota has been waiting for. I loved that the Atlanta Falcons addressed their offensive line in the draft. They just went all in, and I loved it. Talk about an underrated offense going into 2019. That is exactly what Atlanta is. 3 dangerous wide receivers. Devontae Freeman is back. Matt Ryan is at the helm, and with a new and improved set of big boys blocking in front of him, and a new creative offensive coordinator in Dirk Koetter, who led the Tampa Bay offense to 3rd overall in yards last season, I'm really excited to watch Atlanta. If people were actually sure about what Jimmy Garoppolo was as a starting quarterback in the NFL, the 49ers would be one of the Super Bowl favorites in the NFC. And as a Jimmy believer, and even more so a Kyle Shanahan believer, I believe in the 49ers. It does help that they now have one of the best defensive lines in the entire NFL after selecting Nick Bosa in the NFL draft, and not to mention adding Deebo Samuel to the wide receiver group. I think this 49ers roster is being heavily slept on in terms of playmakers offensively, and really projecting on how these playmakers will be utilized within Kyle's scheme. I wouldn't be shocked at all if San Francisco has a top 5 offense and a turnover-heavy big play defense in 2019. Keep sleeping on Pittsburgh. As long as they have Big Ben Roethlisberger, the Steelers are always a playoff threat. This is probably their best defense that they've had in a very long time, and now they're a team without distraction, which is huge. I almost put the Packers higher on this list. I think it's just time for them to get back to the playoffs. I loved their offseason. They really boosted their defense with a ton of pass rushers and playmakers in the back end. And this is A-Rod's best defense he's had since 2010. They have the best young secondary in the NFL and monsters like Clark, Daniels, Gary, and the Smith brothers up front. My only real concern is who steps up as Rodgers' number 2 receiver. I guess we'll have to find out. I'm concerned about the LA Rams heading into 2019. They're just giving me bad vibes. Now, maybe that's because of the state that we saw them during the Super Bowl, but as you can tell, ranking them only 10th, I think I'm just down on them overall, at least right now. Sean McVay's offense was exposed by Bill Belichick, and you have to really think, is this the blueprint that other teams will use to stop them, or at least try to contain the Rams' offense going forward? And maybe the bigger question is Todd Gurley okay? Is he healthy? Because we know that Jared Goff really isn't a quarterback to carry a team. The interior offensive line is a huge concern, and they did lose Ndamukong Suh on the defensive line. Plus, they just have a lot of old players in key positions. Aqib Talib, Andrew Whitworth, Clay Matthews, Eric Weddle. Is this sustainable? The thing that has me really holding on to the hope for the Rams is that they do have great coaching. They do have Sean McVay. They do have Wade Phillips. And I think that will keep them from being hugely disappointing. But at the same time, I don't know. My biggest issue with the Cleveland Browns, roster-wise, was their corners. And now that they added Greedy Williams, in my opinion, the best corner from this past year's draft, their secondary got a lot better, and the team's odds of really living up to the hype also went up. So honestly, I think at this point, it really just comes down to Freddie Kitchens and his ability to manage these personalities, because the talent is all the way there for the Browns. I'm officially counting out Tyreek Hill for 2019, which makes the Chiefs a lot worse. Hill impacts their entire offense. He opens up a defense and demands special attention from defenses every single game. Without him, the Chiefs' offense is still good, but it's not epically fantastic like last year. And they lose that quick score capability that was so special in 2018. The trade for Frank Clark, while expensive, I think will pay off, and overall their defensive line is looking stronger. But that corner group is probably still the worst in football, which has me more than concerned. Kansas City will likely be a playoff team because of their MVP quarterback and their head coach in Andy Reid, but to me, they're just not much of a threat for the Super Bowl without Tyreek Hill. The Chargers are just as talented as last year, and it's really crazy that a lot of people are down on them this year. The Tillery addition was huge, literally. It gives them a big body on their defensive line, something that they didn't have a year ago, Adderley, I think, could be a stud beside Derwin James really early on in his career. And this offense gets a healthy Henry back at tight end. As long as the Chargers protect Phillip Rivers and stay healthy, they will be among the AFC elite again in 2019. They're running out of time, though, to get Phillip Rivers that ring. I'm a bit down on the Saints at the moment. I was so sure last year that was their year, and it just didn't work out. It just feels like a down year for New Orleans. The way Drew regressed at the end of 2018, the lack of adding impactful players this offseason. Don't get me wrong, their coaching is still upper echelon. They have Thomas, they have Kamara, they're in their prime, a top 5 offensive line, and I'm fascinated to watch Jared Cook in this offense. I just can't really explain it. I know others are still on the Saints train as the NFC favorite, but I'm not one of them. The Cowboys have an extremely talented roster that has grown together. This team has chemistry and rapport. Their offensive line could be back to being elite with Travis Frederick returning, and that could really catapult them from a decent offense to a very good one in 2019, especially if their offensive coordinator switch to Kellen Moore actually works out. Believe it or not, Dak Prescott is clicking at a 65 win percentage, which is really impressive. While we make fun of the Clapper Jason Garrett as their head coach, their defensive staff of Marinelli and Chris Richard are one of the best in the entire NFL, and I think the Dallas Cowboys could easily have a top 3 defense this season. I've been on and off with the Bears. One day I feel like Trubisky is going to take that next step, and the next day, I don't know. I pause and I think and I say, this defense can't be as good as it was under Vic Fangio, can it? I'm really just leaning towards the fact that I don't think the defense will have to be as good. I just think that offense is going to be top 10 in the league. The Colts are the biggest threat to the Patriots in the AFC. They're young, they're hungry, and they're more complete than their predecessor. Ballard addressed the team's 2 biggest needs in the draft, adding another explosive receiver for Andrew Luck and Paris Campbell, and a man-to-man corner in Rock Ya-Sin. With Andrew Luck having a year under his belt of full health, the Colts promise to be contenders. The Eagles on paper are the most talented team in the NFL. Adding Zach Brown speaks to the brilliance once again of GM Howie Roseman. Jordan Howard and Deshaun Jackson complete this offense, and Andre Dillard was a brilliant future pick to protect Carson Wentz. Wentz is the one question with this team. Can he regain his MVP form? I'm guessing he'll be close. I don't know fully, but I still love the Eagles this year. The Patriots are clearly still the best team in football, and until somebody knocks them off, I'm going to have them here at number 1. Adding a big-bodied go-to type of receiver like N'Keal Harry in the first round was huge for Tom Brady. And in the second round, the best secondary in the NFL added another dimension with Jawan Williams, a 6'4" physical corner for Bill Belichick to play with. All right, guys, that is my post-draft NFL power rankings for 2019. If you enjoyed, Gronk spike the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It's Mitch of the Bottom Line View. Comment below your opinion on my power rankings, and we'll see you next video. Peace.